I'm the coordinator of the Children's Safety Program at Jeanne Geiger Crisis Center. I've been with this center for 2.5 years. So the Children's Safety Program is our clinical department. We provide long-term trauma-focused therapy for child and adult survivors of domestic violence. In addition to that, I have the privilege to oversee some of our prevention programming. Our youth empowerment services includes going into health classes and talking about healthy relationships, coaching high school students on the bystander approach. We have pretty robust Girls Inc. programming. So all kinds of programming targeted at children and young adults focused on preventing domestic violence before it occurs. The experience of being a boy in our culture is really rigid. There are a lot of expectations put on boys in terms of places that they're supposed to be great, places they're supposed to excel, young boys are really conditioned to try and prove their worth through accomplishment. So often that plays out in money or school or sports, but it also can play out in terms of getting girls, and that kind of sexual conquest can be really, really destructive to kids who are just trying to figure out how to be with one another and learn basic relationship skills. And you're ingraining really bad habits that play out over the course of the lifespan and lead, unfortunately, to survivors coming into our office seeking services. Some of the other pressures that boys face include the very narrow window of emotions that are acceptable to express. So boys aren't allowed to be sad or lonely or embarrassed or vulnerable, but boys are allowed to be angry. Boys have to funnel all of their negative emotion, all of the loneliness, all of the uncertainty, confusion, sadness, and it has to come out as anger. And that's where you see boys getting in more fights, boys getting in more trouble in that way. And really, children of all genders are harmed by these narrow boxes that they're supposed to fit into. And so we know that children are enormously stressed, and particularly right now with the pandemic, it's a really tough time to be a kid. And the number of acceptable outlets that kids have to express these emotions, it's really limited. So when we're able to do prevention and get these kids into our programs before they've been exposed to violence in the home, it gives me hope that they're able to just create a different life for their own children, and that there's going to be a ripple effect for that. So we know from our work with primary survivors and also from our prevention work that toxic masculinity is both a driver of abusive behavior and a barrier for boys to either access support for themselves when they're the victims of abuse, or just live full, meaningful, healthy lives. So we know that through our prevention programming, if we can reach one boy and tell him that it's okay to be vulnerable, or it's okay to check in with a partner and make sure that you've gotten consent, it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to cry, that has a ripple effect, because boys are so often kept in the man box based on the pressures of not wanting to be the only one who step out of it. So much of the pressure that boys feel is reinforced by the groupthink that happens in middle school and high school. So much of the pressure is reinforced by this expectation that if they behave in a different way, if they show vulnerability or if they show sadness, that they're going to be the only one who does so. And when one boy is able to kind of break free from the man box, it gives permission for every other boy to do that too. And that's a really powerful thing. Prevention, to me, represents an opportunity to stop domestic violence before it occurs. When you're working with people who are not yet traumatized by violence in relationships, the opportunity for learning a new way to be and the new way to perform gender is it's a really rich opportunity. And of course, I would argue that for boys who have spent their whole lives living in this narrow box and being expected to perform masculinity in a certain way, We know that toxic masculinity hurts everybody. The man box hurts everybody. And so when boys are able to express their emotions, they're able to live much happier lives. When we talk about men's obligation and men's responsibility to end gender-based violence, we're not just talking about saying and doing the right things, we're also talking about the emotional labor, bringing some awareness to the emotional labor that women and people of all genders should be holding equally, that men disproportionately get out of. And we know since the pandemic started, the impact of expensive childcare has been disproportionately felt by women in the workforce. And so one of the things that our prevention programming seeks to do is give men permission to be involved fathers. And that's a really enormous responsibility, but it's also an incredible privilege. From this day forward, I promise to be part of the solution in ending violence against women and all gender-based violence.